And welcome back to part 2 of daily number 478, where we learn to be a better gamer. We're doing a straight analysis of LiquidTaeja versus TvT. Apparently spent a long time in the opening just getting excited about cool moves by DOS players, especially this nice nifty one by TvT that just made me shiver down the spine. And then it turned out like 23 minutes had passed and I didn't realize. Some days, not all days, but certainly a non-zero number of days, I think, am I terrible at my job? I'm like, guys, we're going to do kind of a quick thing. Maybe we'll breeze through the opening, and we're like 7 minutes into a game. Oh! Analysising. Pow. Let's go ahead and come back and talk about why it's easy to lose with this opening. With this opening of the Hellions, we know we have to go for a Viking. Okay, cool. We've immediately restricted the layout of buildings that we can do. Opening up Hellion, and then, for instance, going for a big barracks transition, this seems hard. This seems quite hard. We would have to then build 2 more barracks at this phase in the game. Because, keep in mind, we are obligated to build this Viking because we need the anti-air. We have no way of coping with a Banshee play. Hell, we have no way of even coping if he builds 2 Vikings, then sees that we have no air, and then builds a Banshee. We're in a rough spot. In other words, if you see your opponent going for Hellion, you can presume straight up he can't be doing anything but going Viking, and you can presume that he'll probably have to be doing something tank-focused. Generally, you just see the swap of these 2 buildings, tank production and marine production, beginning right away. Every now and again, you'll see this lift up, and a barracks get built here. The barracks stay left there, and players will go straight for a sort of marine-y medevac-y thing, but I'm really not a fan of that. From now until 9 minutes is the vulnerable period with this build. It's where you just don't quite have the core mixture of marines and tanks. Both players just looking normal. So, okay, cool. TaeJa can't quite bust in. Trying to get in here. And I love this. Our opponent is early expanding. He's probably going to be going for some sort of tank-based opening, and he's going to be low on marines. If I start my tanks early as TaeJa, I'll be even with him or ahead of him in tanks, ideally. And I can do a push with my tank marine Banshee. Maybe get some ravens in there. And TaeJa elects to do this nice little push. One of the big reasons why I do enjoy this opening from TaeJa is you can do sort of stuff like this. Getting a little overly committal, as you see, can result in the backfire. Probably would not have. I probably would have stayed here and just tried to kill stuff off a little bit. It's very tempting when you don't see the Hellions, but you know, if there aren't any Hellions nearby, then, well, they can still come back in kind of a jiffy. And also one thing that I like about the follow-up from TaeJa, where he is going for this Raven right off the bat, he could have been aggressive and immediately gone Marine Tank Banshee and begun pushing. But what's so nice about the option of getting this late tech lab is that TaeJa is going to be able to get up a Raven. Generally, a Raven is good. Just in all situations. In Viking vs. Viking battles, the point defense drones, the auto turret is also quite useful. If needs be, in some of these marine vs. marine engagements, it can be sort of the tipping mechanism. But most importantly, it just gives you total freedom of detection. So suddenly we don't need to have any turrets. We can cut out an engineering bay. And we see TaeJa expanding there. Seems reasonable. We just lost this whole force. We completed our tech tree. We're going to have a little bit of excess funds. Cool. Doing it. Now, what I love again about TaeJa's opening is that now we have some clear transitions. Once we've built a Raven, we don't need a tech lab here anymore. We can lift this and build a barracks right under that. And we just do straight transitioning. We build barracks to get a reactor on it. We then take our starport and build a reactor on it. On the other hand, with this sort of weird TvT opening, we still don't quite have the number of add-ons and buildings that we want. And I think it's pretty important to do the double barracks at some point. Generally favoring getting 2 tech labs and pushing right away. But still, I haven't talked about the biggest edge that you get from opening up with this Hellion and then transitioning into Viking. Because, how do I want to say that? What the hell happened? How did I get tank topped? I guess I was just sitting here just like scratching there, and then I was like, yeah, the audience would love to see that. Look at this man arm. Look at that man arm. That flabby man arm. Okay, let's get cereal. I got tank topped. That's good because we're about to talk about tanks. In Terran vs. Terran, positioning is more important than anything. Just gaining additional important pieces of ground, largely the ones based around the watchtowers, super critical. Tanks are obviously what you use to hold position. Marines can't hold position. They really can't. You'll never be like, he has it locked down because he has Marines there. Why? Because you just siege outside of range of the Marines, and then he tries to run up and you kill all of them, so he has to run away. He can't hold a position with Marines. So here, in every circumstance, you want to be able to get your tanks as far forward as possible. Hellion, Viking lets you do this. We open Hellion, mobile, they let us get space up. We get Vikings, they're mobile, they let us get space up. Also, because we built that tank so early, we can start our tank production early. Therefore, we can get sieged up in key locations really quickly. We go to where we need, and this is just a total misclick by TaeJa. Getting way over eager. Once siege mode is done, Tree walks as far forward as he can, and then sieges up. Getting them good old Hellions in the way. And this is a little bit of judgment here. Tree you going, ugh, can't win that battle. If I siege up, I lose everything. But ideally, we would have been able to siege up right there. And the entire Hellion Viking focus is to step a lot farther forward into the map and begin our siege up. As a result, LiquidTaeja can say, okay, then my goal is to move out when I have 2 tanks. 2 to 3 tanks is when TaeJa needs to start stepping out into the middle of the map. 2 to 3 tanks is right... TaeJa started his... God, I might... stay here, I need to get water. I was trying to talk about tanks and my voice got hoarse. Okay. Okay, I'm back. Excellent. So TaeJa started his tank production pretty early. He wants to be, at the very least, matched with his opponent in tanks. But Tree has the advantage in positioning, because he has mobile Hellions, he has mobile Vikings. The way to combat this is to attack at 2 to 3 tanks. Around that number is when my Marines, as TaeJa, their numbers are high enough that I can break through. If you wait till 4 or 5 tanks and then move forward, he'll already have 4 or 5 tanks sieged up, and it's hard to deal with. 2 to 3 tanks is a very good number to engage if you have a good amount of Marines. So, just moving on forward. And look at this easy, straightforward transitioning. Love it. Just building the barracks we need. Getting stim, getting tanks, getting a lot of Marines. This is the move that I guess baffled me. That just made me feel, just made me go, what? Sieging up here, and then say building a sensor tower here, and poaching with our Vikings here. Seems like a completely solid way to lock down this essential position of the map. Because hell, where's the weakest spot? Well, we said that at the start of the game, right here. Or even at the front of our base. There's another weak spot right there. So Tree just starts waltzing himself right on forward. And meanwhile, back in Camp Tree, it's kind of the standard mixture of Marine, Tank, Viking, that sort of thing. But literally, Tree gets to siege up earlier. And this is where the mid-game begins, and I'll just say straight off the bat, this is where I think the most confusion occurs in Terran vs. Terran. Certainly the most appreciation, because you watch Terran players in this situation, you think, how on earth can he do anything? They both just have a bunch of tanks. There's no vulnerable place to attack. What are you waiting for? What are you trying to get? But also, if you watch people, actually pretty much all levels of skill other than top GSL and top MLG players and that sort of thing. And all those levels of skill, there's this sort of passivity where it's very easy just to sit at home and build up an army here. The army must be out in the middle of the map grabbing position, because position is the most important thing that you can possibly grab up. It's like playing Risk. Owning more pieces of territory on the map gives all the dividends. So this occurred, I was kind of like, wait, whoa, what's going on? So TvT, how on earth do you get any sort of advantage in this situation? LiquidTaeja, how do you stop him from getting advantage in this sort of situation? Well, the answer is, all you have to do is pick one place to go for and drill at it. We'll absolutely see different circumstances of where you know, TvT will do little skirting techniques, pick off this, pick off that, but literally you can just say, here's the vulnerable spot. And later on down the road, this is a really vulnerable spot where I want to siege up and do damage to here. Cool. Tree's just chilling. Meanwhile, back in the bases, I don't think there's anything that notable going on. Yep, there's the double tech lab to get the double upgrade started on the Marines. Getting more barracks to build more Marines. Is there any tech lab? No. Both players just doing the reasonable thing. When these tank lines start to arrive, 12 minutes, taking an expansion. Pretty reasonable. 10 minutes, 9 minutes, 11 minutes, those sort of early, actually more like the 10 to 9 minute expansions in TvT can often just result in a quick death. TvT could push up and TaeJa wouldn't have these buildings worth of support. Actually, generally, you won't have these two buildings if you go for that fast of a third base in Terran vs. Terran. And so TvT can just win. So almost always you'll see players starting these command centers at around 12 minutes. So we see the good old scoot forward. What's he going for? The most vulnerable location. Nice. Easy peasy. And you're also starting to see the edge that you can gain out of going for this very, very early Hellion play. You just have a superior number of tanks. Way fewer Marines. Ridiculously fewer Marines. 26 to 33, ugh. And we don't even have that good of Marine production either, right? We're just finishing up these two barracks. The other guy has reactors done. He's building 5 at a time. It's crushing us in the Marine camp. Even as an upgrade almost done. That's fine. We're going all tank, all meticulousness. This is kind of an interesting spot for TaeJa. He has a... It's unclear whether he has a superior amount of Vikings or not. But he has this Raven. The Raven will always permit you to do Viking aggression. Generally, this has to stay back home and has to have some sort of marininess to it. And this is kind of a cool play from TaeJa, because, you know, I've been talking a lot from TvT's point of view going down here. This is the clear, weak, vulnerable location. We have a superior tank count given our opening. We're expanding at a standard time. But from TaeJa's point of view, when we're in this holy crap position, what edge can we go for? Air superiority. If we can knock down all his Vikings, then he won't be able to advance forward without scans. Every scan is 250 minerals. And of course, when this happens, this is actually the most painful thing that I've ever seen happen in my entire life. TaeJa did kind of manage to take out the air, but he didn't exactly re-seize air superiority by any measure. And likewise, he just begins to try to step forward with his tanks using this Viking as a spotter. And suddenly we see the one vulnerability that we were working at all game long finally kick in. Oh, yes. And what I do enjoy quite a bit is the idea of lines, where your tank line is. So I'm actually going to move my camera all the way to this far corner. And I'm just going to draw on the minimap where you see this red line. If you just sort of extend the red line out, this really shows where the safe locations are. So notice how I'm drawing this red line. TreeFoU, despite putting a lot of pressure right here, notice that because he's leaving units here, he protects his reinforced path. Again, I'm going to move down here. I'm drawing this line. In this aggressive circumstance, I mean, hell, there's like no vulnerable expansions, but certainly it's nice that all our expansions are behind our tank line, but so is our reinforced line. Our reinforced path is here, is right along here. Also, notice another important line. So here I'm drawing the invisible tank line that's created by red. Red is essentially staking out this territory. The other important line that is being covered is the line of these units all the way up to the main base. It's super easy, I think, for in Tree's position to do something like unsiege and then pull back to here. But notice if he had pulled units back to here, the tank line would kind of cover like this. There would be hardly anything on the map covered. Literally, going from here to here creates enough of a solid foundation that links up to this watchtower that it's a lot stronger. Alright. TaeJa getting beaten down. Getting beat down. So TaeJa's forced to sort of retreat. Now, just to be extra explicit, also the tank line that TaeJa has, there's some tanks here. Some tanks here, some units here. Also the same thing is there. Notice that when I draw this line, like that, where we have some units here in the main and some units up there, as I'm drawing this across, he's pretty much defended his main. Even though this looks bad, in the units lost tab, it's not too horrific. Most of the losses were the Raven and the Vikings. So yeah, TaeJa's actually not in that bad of a spot right now. So I'll just say again the most important thing. At all points in time, the defining characteristic of strategy up through the mid-game is the third expansion. So I like the fact that while all this is going on, TaeJa said, well, let me just go take a medevac up to this top side to try to manage a third expansion. This is something that can really delay the reinforcements here. I don't think that delaying the reinforcements will actually do that much, but it certainly will delay those reinforcements. Most importantly, it gives us information as to where our opponent is at. It lets us know if we're really ahead or behind. So if there was no expansion here, and we saw this, I would just go into straight defensive mode as TaeJa and not worry about it. And just think, yeah, my upgrades are eventually going to conquer all. Also, I don't think I talked about this, but I'll back up enough anyways. Yeah, let's go back to 12 minutes. Upgrades are certainly an important thing. This actually won't take too long to talk about, but the time at which TreeFoU got the upgrades is the moment when he had this solid tank line established. If you actually even pop back just a little bit more, oops, not that far back, 12 minutes, go. He had like 2 tanks here, and then you'll notice all his other 2 tanks came up, sieged up there nicely. Alright, well now it's totally safe. I'm totally safe and good to go. Bam. I don't need to spend too much time devoting all those resources to the front because I already have the front in lockdown. So, we were back at the 16-minute mark. Oopsie daisies. TreeFoU still just hammering down the same spot again and again and again. You see this reinforced path trickling in? It's just barely covered by this tank line. Again, if the tanks were just a few paces back, this wouldn't be covered. And here comes the moment we've all been waiting for. The blunder of blunders, in my eyes. Whoops, didn't want to click that screen. This is certainly annoying. In Tree's position, where, think of it as just chipping damage, right? It's like if you're playing against a Spiral Sentinel in Marvel's Capcom 2. You're just taking some chipping damage as TaeJa. You're getting some big units, you're maybe losing some depots here and there, but we wanted to do some damage down to this third expansion. TaeJa accidentally misscouts it.
Is under attack.
This is really easy to have happen. But this just totally,
depleted.
this is brutal. This is so bad for TaeJa.
Complete.
I mean, right there, he's going to know that there's an expansion down there.
Add-on complete.
But whiffing the expansion, what you really want is to force a whole bunch of units to climb up here and to make this island more vulnerable.
Additional supply depots required.
Once this goes down, and TaeJa starts pulling back up here,
Mineral field added.
there, this is a little bit more like what you want, but this whole expansion could have quite possibly gone down. It's very possible this could have at least taken big damage, and then TaeJa could have left a Marine here, stemmed, and wandered up here. Because just one medevac up at this Northland location is enough to get him very awkward and out of position. So in this spot, if I'm TaeJa, the biggest location I want to get to is, well, how do I say that? In this location, we see that there's an island, right? As I back up just one more step, there's some just basic sort of trading going on where TaeJa moves forward a little bit, tries to pick off Marines. And I'll also note, okay, no, I'm going in too many different directions. Alright, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to first talk about what I'm seeing on this formation. So, even though it's easy to look at this as a red blob, there's some vulnerable positions that I'm seeing right now. Tanks up here are going to be quite good. If you'll note, oops, oh god, I held B instead of V. A tank right here would be able to pinch into this reinforced path a little bit, forcing units to go around. One of the reasons why TvT kind of needs to have those units just a little bit farther forward. So if I'm TaeJa, I'm going to start nibbling a little bit farther forward. Also, if you look at the line, like, this is kind of how the tank line looks. Attacking at the top or the bottom of the pole is really good, because you can say siege up 4 tanks and hit his 2. This sort of thing, I don't think is really ever going to be particularly beneficial, even if the tanks are unsieged. Trying to poke in with the tanks. Also, if you siege up here, picking off some of the Marines, it's kind of the vulnerability angle that I'm seeing there. But also, what's another way to break these tank lines? It's a little bit indirect. If you can form an island of units somewhere else, such as with a drop, then suddenly this becomes way mega vulnerable, and TvT often just unsieges and just pulls back. He doesn't try to keep forcing the issue by any means. So there's TaeJa. He found the point of that tank formation, took it out. Losing in the air battle, but still have this nice little island here. And once we start nibbling away at those points, it's just a sort of slow, genteel process to begin working our way out of this little bump. And now TaeJa has tank superiority. In moments of tank superiority, this I guess I would describe as the key time for LiquidTaeja. And amazingly, it's been another 24 minutes. I don't know why this feels so fast, but this feels fast to me. I guess we'll finish up the game afterwards. Yeah. Yeah! Part number 3 after this.